Hey everyone, JCS StarCraft here, bringing you Game 1 of the best of 3 quarterfinals between White-Ra and BratOK in the Go4SC2 number 32 Cup. Action getting started here on Kulas Ravine with White-Ra spawning as the red Protoss in the bottom right corner and BratOK spawning as the blue Terran in the bottom left corner. BratOK, of course, one of my favorite Terran players to watch at the moment. Was supposed to be one of the 16 players invited to the IEM Season 5 Global Championship, but however, I think had some sort of visa issues, and his replacement was Muro, who ended up taking the entire thing. So I think BratOK, really wanted to go. Would have been very interesting to see what he would have been able to accomplish there. White-Ra, of course, having changed his name to match his official sponsor, which is Duckload. I think that's some sort of streaming service in Europe. So changed his name to Duckload Ra. Of course, everyone still refers to him as White-Ra because that is what he's known for. In fact, his website is whitera.com. So yeah, and it looks like, wow, BratOK going to be getting early gas right here. Gas on 11 before his supply depot finishes. So should be pretty interesting. I know that BratOK in the beta definitely favored bio build against the Protoss and opted for early Ghost, went for mass Marines with the Ghost and back, just did a really great job with it, and pretty interested to see what he does here. So finally throws down his racks on 12, and kind of a change up right there. Well, meanwhile, White-Ra is scouting the map, trying to find his opponent. Wow, my voice is getting hoarse. I apologize for that. And won't be able to find him. And, unfortunately, it's just scouted everything but the lower cross position. Should be pretty interesting that they are down here, as only these two rocks will separate them. Whether or not they will attack that will be very interesting. Their naturals out on here should be a little bit harder to hold, and both of them will probably opt to get this natural and might maybe even take the gold because of the distance that they have established for themselves. Right now, BratOK's racks is about to finish. White-Ra now getting a pretty normal 12 gate, looks like 13 on the assimilator, and looks like BratOK going to be throwing down a factory once that rack's finished. So kind of an interesting change for his strategy against Protoss, and getting his orbital on 15, really getting that early gas so that he can throw down the factory as soon as that racks is done, and now pumping out his first Marine. So right now, White-Ra is pushing out with his first Zealot. Does know that his opponent kind of had a little bit maybe later racks going down than normal. Because of the refinery going down. So going to be testing the front with this Zealot and just running all the way across. White-Ra right now, let's see what he does. Getting a Cybernetic score back here. Doesn't want to throw it out in the front. Maybe trying to hide it from a scan. Or maybe just decided to put it down there for kicks and giggles. So first Hellion is coming out for White-Ra, and it looks like, here comes the Zealot. The Marine is not going to be able to hold up against that. Needs to run around until the Hellion comes out and is able to take some hits. And now the Zealot is running in to try to take out some SCVs if he can. Right now, not going to be able to. Hellion is coming out. SCVs are coming out to fight as well, and nothing dies except for that Zealot. So first Stalker already coming out for White-Ra and getting his second gate down, getting that second gas as well. Going to be chrono boosting the warp gate technology, and now the Hellion is going to come out and try to do his very best to harass the supply line and the economy for BratOK. And BratOK, unfortunately, kind of just has to run by, takes a good bit of damage, but is able to run by that the Zealot and Stalker wall right there, and is able. It looks like he is able to take down just one. Looking at the units lost, there are two. So one of the probes did go down in that fight. BratOK, meanwhile, going to be sending in a secondary scout. Was able to scout already, but now just trying to look at the other areas. White-Ra sometimes is pretty sneaky with his building placement. In the beta, really favored kind of an early Void Ray against his opponent. Would always sneak it out somewhere so that his opponent wouldn't detect it and would be caught off guard. So now it looks like BratOK is going to be going with a second racks and tech lab going down on that as well as getting his starport. So kind of a decent mix of units right now. Concussive Shell, I think, was already researched, so going to be pushing out again with a small contingent of forces. This probe coming into scout and unfortunately going to get blasted away. Meanwhile, it looks like the proxy pylon has gone down for White-Ra, and he's going to be pushing in with a whole bunch of stalkers. Is BratOK going to have enough at this point to really slow us down? He does have concussive shell, does not have stim yet, so can't really kite quite as well. Really needs to pull back in, and now bringing out his SCVs to absorb some of the frontline damage while he's blasting away with the concussive shell. SCVs are going down at this point, but BratOK should have enough to hold off against his opponent right now. Does have 3 Marauders and is focus firing down on the stalkers, pulling back. So good micro by BratOK at this point, able to withstand most of the firepower, and now going to be able to reinforce. The medevac is out as well, and now White-Ra won't give up, still pushing in as best as he can. Wow, BratOK doing a good job microing with that medevac, picking him up, taking him away from fire so that the kind of rotating his Marauders down, and White-Ra was focusing on the medevac to try to take it down as well. Has a few reinforcements now that this proxy pylon is out there. Right now has, it looks like he's a 3-gate robo, and that first Immortal is about to come out as well. So BratOK unfortunately falling just a little bit behind, losing some of his SCVs to that attack as well, and was already, I think, behind because White-Ra was chrono boosting while that happened. Now throwing down a scan at his opponent, so loses that mule as well. And these early minerals, this early mining for BratOK, very, very important, but still opts to throw a scan down. Definitely wants to know what his opponent is going for so that he can react accordingly. And right now, just Marines coming out for BratOK, getting that combat shield, so still favoring that bio with just a little bit of the Hellion to support the ground army and attack some of the lighter units as well. And right now, unfortunately, BratOK can't really move out. White-Ra does have a good amount of units stationed outside of his base. BratOK just trying to bulk up his units as best as possible. 60 over 38 right now. White-Ra is ahead at this point. And it looks like BratOK going to be throwing down a bunker in front. Going to try to turtle in for a little bit and prepare for this next attack. Very wise move. Hopefully he'll get it off in time, as White-Ra's forces are coming in right now. And this is definitely a very difficult force for BratOK to hold off at this point. Looks like he is getting a Raven to detect any sort of observer in his base. And with that bunker down, that's enough to push White-Ra back for the time being. Doesn't really want to engage and lose that battle. So fortunately for BratOK, has set up, and I think White-Ra has a good amount of respect for his opponent not to push in right there. I think could have done a good amount of damage. And so looking back at the production tab, that Raven is about to come out. More Marines being trained. BratOK trying his very best to bulk up his army against his opponent, who is right now getting a Twilight Council, and that 3-gate robo is pushing out. So both players going to choose to expand at this point. I think both sense that that's what is occurring. If you're not fighting your opponent, you are probably working on your macro, and that is how it works on the pro level, of course. So looking at the income tab really quick, BratOK is still behind in his harvester count. It looks like he might not even have 3 per gas at this point, as he is behind in that gas count. So unfortunately, because of having to pull out early with his SCVs to do some sort of defense, right now just waiting until he has 400 minerals before he can throw down that expansion. And going to be throwing out, looks like, another scout to go out across the field yet again. Or maybe not going to be taking that expansion. Does have enough minerals at the moment, but going to be gearing up for some sort of something going on right now and trying to hunt down. Does he see this? No, he still doesn't see the proxy pylon there. If he took that out, that could be very advantageous. And it looks like the rocks on the backside of White-Ra have been thrown down. At this point, White-Ra is ahead both in economy and in the army. And it looks like a Templar Archives going down as well. So first to expand, already has the assimilator ready to go and going to be working on defending here. So White-Ra does have better map control at this point, and I think is ahead right now. It looks like BratOK trying to figure out something to fry, really wants to get in there and do some sort of damage, has gone up onto the cliffs. Now is, I think, looking to see, yes, knows that that bottom area is open and might not want to explore that just yet. I think he might have had the ability to fry from behind the rocks, or I'm not really sure why he ran down there, maybe just to scout it. And BratOK, unfortunately, not focused on this screen at the very moment, is taking a lot of shots to the medevac. That medevac is down to just 10 hit points. Really needs to drop off those Hellions because it will get blown to bits in just 1 second. And BratOK now just finally getting his expansion out and down. Still behind. Psystorm already being researched for White-Ra, and unfortunately for BratOK, I just think that he doesn't have enough. Does he have? Is the Ghost Academy going down at all? And I don't think it is. Getting another Rax at this point. Trying to drop down the best that he can, but White-Ra with very good intuition of where that medevac was going. Those Hellions just fell incredibly quickly without being able to do any damage at all. Meanwhile, BratOK is going to break down the back, so this game's a lot of battles are probably going to happen in the back right here, as this is the shortest distance for both players to travel across. And now it looks like BratOK is pushing in with his units across. Is this going to be enough? This might be the final push for BratOK. Somebody is pinging right here as the action is about to occur. White-Ra is breaking down the back door so that he can move on to take the gold expansion. And unfortunately, White-Ra caught just a little bit off right there, as some of his units were focused on the back, and now finally moving out towards the front. Is going to bulk up. I think he is more than enough to handle this. Right now in the farm count, 105 to 86. Psystorm is going down, and I just don't think BratOK has enough. But BratOK feels like he does have to push in. He's going to try his very, very best. The kite throws down the auto turret and trying his best to kite and run away. Cannot engage his army head on. Auto turret is going down here, but White-Ra does have forces coming down, and now going to be stalking down his opponent. Will be able to reinforce. Finally, BratOK sees that proxy pylon and is able to take it down, so White-Ra won't be able to stream units in as effectively. But now that the back rocks are broken, White-Ra is ahead and even has a warp prism, which he's been using to kind of shuttle the Templars around, which is a great move that I haven't seen very much. Not a lot of players using the warp prisms really early to mid game, so kind of cool use by White-Ra, and now going to be using it to come in. And not only will he be able to drop off the Templars to Psystorm that army, but he can also warp and reinforce with more Zealots on the ground. So not good. Not good for BratOK at all. Drops Templars and just gets out of there. And meanwhile, White-Ra throwing down some really good force fields, kind of choking off BratOK's forces, and right now it just seems like he's going to be too far ahead. And this lone sentry trying to blast away at the... No, just trying to take out that SCV. The SCV's still alive for a while, but White-Ra here just blasting and actually choking himself off a little bit and just taking fire. Unfortunately, the force was trying to split BratOK's army, but instead, meanwhile, it looks like the Templars up here are engaging in another battle on the cliffs, morphed into that Archon, and now going to be stopping any sort of mining at the expansion. BratOK was able to drop down a small amount of forces here in White-Ra's base, but I think White-Ra will have more than enough to kind of handle that at this point. Templar throwing down a Psystorm, of course, and going to be running back to, I think ran back temporarily, but decided, hey, I can probably just push in at this point, as my opponent is almost mined out of his main and now kind of remote mining on his natural. Great job by BratOK on holding this off. You know, most people would have probably lost a long time ago, especially against White-Ra, but BratOK doing a great job microing his units the best that he can and just trying to stay alive right now. Everything being fried at his base, still able to hold off pretty decently, and is even able to bring in some SCVs to attack while still binding away. Wow, I'm always impressed by BratOK and his ability to kind of stay cool despite the fact that everything's dying at his base. Even has this SCV mining in the midst of this craziness. Wants every last mineral that he can get to pump things out. Banshee now coming out. Don't think it's going to be enough. Ghosts are finally down, of course. But at this point, it might be too little, too late for BratOK, although a valiant effort on him to hold things out. Is able to drive out most of the forces and is running away. But it looks like White-Ra already taking the gold expansion. It has not been severely harassed at either of his bases right now. Going to be throwing down a few more warp gates, and then it's going to be game pretty soon. Looking at the army type, 91 over 32. I'm not even sure how BratOK's still alive at this point, but he is, and trying to hold on to everything that he can. Doesn't want to give up without a fight, and finally throws down the GG. So great game by both players. White-Ra goes up 1-0 in the quarterfinals, and this has been JCS StarCraft signing off.